The heartbreak of losing a baby.
Your world just crumbles at the minute you hear, I'll never forget it, I'll never get over it, and I'll forever be sad, I think.
Saying that one minute you're going to have a baby to then be told actually you could, but it will never survive. And that for us was honestly heartbreaking.
All you've got there is a reminder, the scar, that there was a baby in there, but you don't have your baby with you.
He didn't get a shot at life. I mean, actually, you would give anything to give him that chance.
Bereaved parents share their stories to raise awareness. Good evening. Awful, lonely and heart-wrenching. That's how grieving families describe the tragic experience of losing a baby during pregnancy, and it's all too common. It's estimated 1 in 4 pregnancies in Scotland end in miscarriage or stillbirth. Yet the silence around the topic means those affected can feel isolated and unable to speak about their loss. Well, Kellyanne Woodland has this report which contains images that you may find upsetting.
Baby loss is something no family wants to go through, but many sadly suffer. It's a deeply personal experience for every mother and every father who endures the trauma of miscarriage or stillbirth. Earlier this year, Kim, her partner and little boy were looking forward to having another baby. At 18 weeks pregnant, Kim went to hospital for a check-up scan as she was feeling unwell.
I was on my own, fully expecting to go in and out in half an hour and all being well and come back home.
So tell me about the moments that you learned they couldn't detect a heartbeat.
I knew straight away something was wrong because I could see the monitor and the baby wasn't moving. I was petrified, I was on my own, and the midwife couldn't even come and comfort me because of the virus. It was so awful, and everything else thereafter just became a blur.
At the height of lockdown, Kim found herself alone while trying to process the worst news.
When something like that happens, you need somebody to hold you and to hug you and tell you, look, you'll be all right, we'll get through it. To not have that, I think, made it 100 times worse. But what went through my head as soon as they said to me was, how am I going to tell my fiancé?
Kim and her fiancé Jason also had to tell their little boy, who was just 3 at the time.
As simple and as innocent as he is, he just was like, oh mummy, are you very sad because the baby's died? And I said, yeah, I am, I'm very sad. Oh, he just sat and cuddled me for a good 10 minutes and he just was like, okay mummy. Pottered off and played with his toys, and he just knew that from then on, that if mummy was sad, it's just because mummy missed the baby, and he just understood it.
Kim and Jason returned to hospital the following day so Kim could be induced to deliver their baby.
We knew what we were going in to face, we knew that what we were going in to hear, we knew that we wouldn't be bringing the baby home.
Did you hold your baby afterwards?
I only got to hold her maybe for like half an hour to 40 minutes. She was really fragile. We've lost her and I'll never forget it, I'll never get over it, and I'll forever be sad, I think.
Laura and her husband Graham were looking forward to having a little brother or sister for their son Ethan. At the end of March, she went to hospital alone for her first scan.
So I was a little bit nervous but equally very excited to see, obviously, the baby.
And what happened during the 12-week scan?
She went very silent and I was thinking, what's wrong? And she said, we actually think there might be something wrong with baby. So I'm thinking, wow, I've went in here expecting to FaceTime my husband to tell him, obviously because he wasn't at the scan, to tell him that there's the baby and this is a scan. And then a doctor came in and she basically said to me, prepare yourself for the worst.
Laura's husband joined her for a second in-depth scan. They found out their baby had anencephaly, a serious birth defect which affects the baby's brain and skull.
And I thought, they're wrong. They've got to be wrong. That can't be the case. It's definitely 100% wrong. But actually, it wasn't. It was 100% right. Even if we did go ahead with the pregnancy, we would end up with the baby coming out and only surviving maybe an hour at the max. She would never have survived. So we then had to take the heartbreak decision to terminate the pregnancy.
It must have been absolutely heartbreaking to make that decision.
One minute you're going to have a baby and your due date's in October, to then be told actually you can't, that you could, but it will never survive. And that for us was honestly heartbreaking, really, really heartbreaking.
Laura and her husband named their baby, a little girl, April.
The midwife was amazing, like the dignity, the respect, everything that she showed me, April and Graham was unbelievable like that. We did have time with her and we were able to talk to her and cried, a lot of crying.
It must have just been so traumatic.
It wasn't till afterwards, the realisation of it was really difficult to take. Really difficult, especially during lockdown, because I had no one to speak to and I had to be a mum. I had to just pick myself up and move on. September, when I realised too much was happening and I hadn't dealt with it, and I was drowning in emotion. I realised that the reason I was struggling is because I hadn't really dealt with the grief of losing April.
Would you say it's still a taboo subject?
People don't know what to say. People would say to me, don't worry, you've got Ethan to keep you going, or you're lucky you've got Ethan, or at least you've been able to get pregnant, at least you know you can have a girl. And I'm like, none of that is what I want to hear. That is not helping me. That's actually making me feel like, oh, well, I should be grateful, rather than I've lost a child, I've lost a baby. It is very much a taboo subject.
Jo and Alistair have been trying for a baby for more than 4 years. They conceived through IVF and were preparing to welcome their firstborn just a couple of months ago.
I remember the car journey on the way there. I was even timing the contractions, saying, oh, that was 8 minutes between them. You know, this really does feel like this is happening. Just never even considered us having a stillborn baby. Never even knew it was a risk, just didn't even think about it. We were quite excited and positive, thinking this is it, you know. But it then was the devastating reality that they did the scan and you could see them scanning over the heart and there was no movement, and that's when we realised he'd passed. But we just couldn't believe it.
Jo then had a dead baby in her, and I hate saying that word, but kind of he passed, but that's what it was.
It's just so cruel that, you know, you've still got the car seat in the back of the car, and when we came back on that Friday night and you just look around the house and it was everything we'd got planned for him, you know, and because we were that far gone, we had everything ready for him.
Initially it was why us, it was then why anyone, and then
why him?
Why him? Because actually it's nothing to do with us, it's about the fact that
he didn't get a shot.
He didn't get a shot at life. I mean, actually you would give anything to give him that chance.
Jo and Alistair spent the night at home. They decided to deliver their baby by C-section the following day and named him Hope.
Baby was delivered, immediately taken away and cleaned up, and Jo got taken through into the recovery room. And it was then where one of the midwives came through and were just like, do you want to see your son? And I thought it was Jo. I went, son? Oh, we had a boy. That was when it was just the explosion of emotion.
Your body goes through all that, but you don't mind because you know you're going to get a baby at the end of it. But for us, my body had gone through that, and all you've got there is a reminder, the scar, that there was a baby in there, but you don't have your baby with you. It's just awful.
Over the past 8 weeks, the couple have been supported by baby loss charities Held in Our Hearts and Simba.
They took handprints and footprints for us, which we now have. We've got a photo album of about 30 photos of him that they professionally took. So,
and they're amazing.
Yeah.
We got a lock of his hair. They gave us 2 teddies, one to be with Hope, one to stay with us.
We don't know anyone this has happened to. It's awful. But then the charities opens up this whole support group to you and this network of people who have all been through the same thing.
It's like a secret network that you never actually wanted to know existed, but now you do. You're so pleased it's there. If we can impact one other family in Hope's honour, in a sense, then that would just be fantastic.
And thank you so much to the parents who spoke to Kellyanne in that report. Well, with me now is Abby Clark, founder of the charity Miss in Aberdeen, which supports parents who've gone through early pregnancy loss. And here in the studio is NHS midwife Leah Hazard. Thank you both so much for joining us. Abby, you had a miscarriage 2 years ago. You must have identified an awful lot with what was said in that report.
Yeah, so I had a miscarriage in 2015. And I could relate to some of what they were saying, especially the emotions, and feeling to blame, guilty, ashamed, not being able to speak to anyone about it. I definitely did have some of those feelings, and just as well not knowing about it as well. What could it didn't even come across my mind when I was pregnant that I might miscarry, I might lose my baby. Yeah, it's a very traumatic experience. It is indeed, and my heart goes out.
Hearing what Abby's saying there, that women are, they talk about the loss and the guilt, and people we don't talk about it. We're not open enough about it, are we?
No, we're not, and I think it's a really widespread and common reaction for parents who are in this really sad situation to feel these emotions of loss and guilt and blame, and it's partly because they've no dialogue to refer to. There's no social context to sort of catch them when they fall. So it's really important to open up these conversations, and really special that you're doing that tonight.
Abby, why do you think there is such a taboo about talking about miscarriage and losing a baby? Why is that?
I think one of the reporters said earlier in one of the videos that it's 1 in 4 women are likely to suffer miscarriage in a lifetime, and that means that most of us have probably gone through this ourselves, or maybe they know of someone, their family, their friends, that have gone through this loss. And I didn't really know anything about, like I said, about early pregnancy loss until I started talking to my friends and family about it, and they opened up about their experiences as well. I definitely agree that miscarriage, it appears to be a very taboo subject, not just in the UK but worldwide. And seems to be linked to stigma and also shame as well. I think that many women, they don't receive the appropriate and perhaps feel respected from their family and friends when they've told them about their loss or the losses. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of the ladies was saying that you have various comments which are said to you by family and friends, which are sometimes not quite appropriate, and perhaps maybe they might not meant to be said in that way. Maybe they just don't know what to say as well.
And people just don't know what to say sometimes. But there's also this idea that you don't tell people you're pregnant for the first 3 months. Do you think that kind of perpetuates the problem in a way? This makes it secretive?
I think it does in a sense. I mean, there's not one right way of doing things. Everybody's different, and everybody will have a different comfort level in terms of how much they want to share with their friends and family, their employers and so on. But I think because many people think of the 12-week scan as this milestone in pregnancy, this sort of checkpoint where we know, is baby okay or not okay, so many people tend to not want to share their news before then in case things go wrong, when in essence, actually, if you tell a few trusted people earlier on that you are pregnant, then you already have that support network in place if things were to go wrong. And
Abby, you have started a charity now. Have you found that it's been particularly busy during the COVID pandemic?
Yes, definitely. So we started the charity in March 2017, so almost 4 years that the charity's been running for now. Definitely over the last few months, really since February, March, when we went into lockdown, we had a big increase of members, that's any individuals, male or female, looking for support from our Miss charity. And I think a number of reasons, we're not able to meet our family and friends, we're not able to even, give them a hug. And sometimes just having a hug with your mum or your dad, that can make a huge difference, that can do. So we definitely have had a big increase, and that's with our online support groups and also our phone service as well.
Leah, you were saying to me before we came on air that it's been very tough for midwives because you can't console people or hug them when they get bad news, and sometimes they're on their own.
Absolutely. I mean, we fully understand the distress that it causes to women and their partners when they get this bad news and they're separated or they're not able to comfort each other in the way that they normally would do. And as midwives, of course, we understand why the visiting restrictions are in place. Ostensibly, they are to keep everyone safe. But I think it's really important for people to know and understand that that separation goes against the grain of everything that we stand for as midwives. We're not happy about separating people, and we understand that this places a huge additional emotional burden on women at this most vulnerable time. So we do our very best to counteract that with as much sensitivity and compassion as we can, but we know that it's not easy for families, and we all hope for this situation to be over as soon as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, what further support do you think people could do with Abby? Briefly.
Yeah, so just briefly talking a little bit about the MIS support. So we have our online support groups where we hold twice a month online through Zoom, and they can speak to other members. They can listen to speakers like midwives, Reiki, acupuncture that can help with the grieving process.
Okay.
We also have a phone line as well, which is runs 24 hours, 7 days a week as well.
We'll have to leave it there, but Abby and Aberdeen, thank you so much. Leah, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Well, if you've been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, SANS and Child Bereavement UK are among the charities that have helplines to provide support. Time now for a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly with our Talking Heads panel.